grocery store. We're recommending that that be put back to connect both streets to that. And then we're recommending that they put a 4-foot fence around the entire perimeter of that parking lot that matches the fence that's around the rest of the site. That also would then hopefully, that wouldn't then match the gates. We're recommending that there be 7 feet of landscaping around the perimeter of this parking lot. And right now there is a curb, like a 4 or 6 inch raised curb, kind of randomly placed, to be honest, in that parking lot. We're recommending that that come out and that the landscaped area be put in and that the area be drained into those areas. So I think that those are the conditions that we've added to the site plan pertaining to that parking lot, and I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Slack.
Did the TDMP or any of the updates specifically talk about adding a second lane, or is that just sort of a need based on use at this point?
I do not recall. That's a very good question. I did not bring my files from the previous years on this site, so I do not recall if that is if that was a condition or not. Brett Ellis, the manager of administration, is here. He's been enforcing the TDMP and is here, and he can answer questions specific to the TDMP and how it's been addressed with the site. It looks like he has an item. I can look through it quickly to see if there was a condition. But obviously Public Works would be involved in that decision. CPED doesn't issue curb cut permits. That would be Public Works. And I know that Public Works has indicated in email that it would be approvable subject to them having 20 feet of space between the ticket machine and the sidewalk. And so as long as the plans that come in can meet that condition, then I believe that the curb cut could be widened.
I just remember that in these multiple conversations about the different projects on the site that we heard a lot from the community about the livability and the parking, the cars on street that are backed up and double parked, and so the hope, I think, in approving that parking lot expansion was that it would alleviate some of those issues, and it appears that the intent of this is to alleviate some of those issues even more so, because it stated that it's to prevent cars from backing up in the street and to allow for easier access. So there is a benefit there. I think the downside to that it takes away, from some of the walkability and potentially creates some safety issues with crossing a wider curb cut and opening. So.
Okay, Commissioner Kronzer.
Thank you, Hillary. Excuse me. In regards to this loading area, I just want to be real clear about this. Are we talking about customer loading and unloading, or products and goods of loading and unloading?
Products of goods and products coming into and out of the stores.
Okay,
so not for customers.
And where are the access service stores to the different tenants in this building? It seems like an odd place for product loading to me.
There is a door that leads into the mall here, into the interior hallways that connect to all of the different stores. And then there are further entrances into the mall down at this location. And there's doors on all well, not on Elliott, but on the north and south sides of the building too.
Okay, and then the porch that was illegally constructed, was there any thoughts about providing a staircase directly to the public sidewalk on the south side?
We did talk about that. I don't know if there would be enough room to get stairs up to a landing and then into the building. So I did not change the recommendation on that to provide a staircase out. There's not that much space between the property line, if you can see, and then the door, which is probably showing orange on your screen. That is into a restaurant. It's into the mall.
And that would be in the public realm, would require an encroachment permit?
And the sidewalk is narrow, so I don't know if they would get an encroachment permit, to be honest. Just given that the sidewalk is at the edge of the building, I don't know how. I don't know how narrow we'd really want the public sidewalk to get if the stairs actually encroached into there.
Can we zoom out on the photo?
Oh, I'm sorry, you can't.
I don't know if it's your. That's a little better.
So the edge of the porch is the sidewalk. That south edge.
Anything else, Commissioner Kronzer? Okay. Commissioner Vreeland.
I read all the emails and letters before us, and there were lots of questions concerning the travel demand management plan. And Brad Alice is here, and I'm wondering if you could just give us a summary of what's in your memorandum of kind of what has happened and what
Certainly, President.
what the details are.
Certainly, President, Commissioner. The travel demand management plan was originally adopted with conditions back. I guess the initial one, what we would say, is probably the 2004 TDMP. And one of the issues we've had, as Hillary had noted in the staff report, they came through, were denied, were told to go back, get an update to that travel demand management plan, did so. And so we have what we're referring to as the 2015 TDMP that was adopted in October of 2015. One of the issues we have with that is that TDMP was predicated upon an expansion, which then was denied. So some of the analysis in that includes that 8,800 square foot addition, includes a police substation, and some of the things that ended up not happening. So we have kind of an issue on our end where enforcement has been very difficult on this, just from a legal standpoint. While it was adopted, there were aspects of it that weren't really enforceable. Plus, there are portions of it that don't make sense given the way they were worded in the TDMP and then in conjunction with the denial. One of those being for example, one of the issues and one of the neighborhood's biggest concerns has been the traffic, so they would like to have that off-duty police officer. One of the issues with the enforcement on that, it did reference a police officer, an off-duty police officer at times recommended by the Planning Commission. That was to have, one, been housed in that substation, and two, as a result of the denial, there were no times recommended by the Planning Commission. So in this case, the applicant actually had, during 2016, for a brief period of time, relatively brief period of time, actually did have off-duty police officers, ceased using them, but has actually met that condition as a result of that. So there's not additional enforcement or along those lines that we can move on that. So that's one example. Are there other specific ones? I mean,
No, I just,
yeah.
you went through that kind of detail in your memorandum, and I thought it was important information to be said publicly.
Okay. Commissioner Lupke-Peer.
Yeah, Brad. So also in your memorandum, it seemed you indicated there'd be an up-to-date TDMP by 2018.
President, Commissioner. Yes, that is one of the intentions. It was actually to have been updated already. That was one of the conditions that goes along with that. And in fact, one of the issues we had with this is a TDMP wasn't required for this expansion because this expansion doesn't have any habitable space in it. So it wasn't triggered for this. It probably would have been helpful to have had an updated TMP for this meeting. Regardless of this, after this application has run its course, regardless of what's happened, whether it's approved or denied, all of the appeals, everything has run its course, we will be issuing orders to have that done so that we can have that update reflecting the new reality of the situation. I have spoken to the property owner, and he's indicated he does need to do that, and he's already been in touch with I believe it was SRF that did the original TDM.
Okay. Are there any further questions of staff? Commissioner Sweezy.
Yes, what was the brief period of time that the applicant did have that off-duty police officer, if you know?
President, Commissioner, I apologize. I don't know the specific times. I did check with the police precinct, and they did verify that off-duty police officers have been hired. I do not have those dates and times. I apologize.
Thanks.
Are there any further questions of staff? Hearing none, at this time I'll open the public hearing. And I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first, if you can come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And is there anything you'd like to add to?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robert Speeder, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant who is here if there are any questions that I can't answer. I am an attorney for the applicant. I'll keep it brief. I should note that This is a sensible request, a sensible application. It provides for an expansion that does not, again, increase any usable space. It's meant to provide safer access to the market by customers through the covered walkways, because in the winter, and certainly covering the wheelchair, the handicap accessible area would be helpful as well. It provides more attractive access. I think if the pictures that are in your packet of the previous entries, this is a much more attractive approach. It reduces off-site impacts by providing off-street loading zone. And when I met with the applicant on Thursday, I just wanted to get a picture of it and just show them, behold, there is the problem. A truck with deliveries in the street. And I think what I find and what I've seen, having represented other small urban or even larger urban markets, is deliveries. And they get backed up, they come at the wrong times. And this is, I think, a really good way to utilize that space that's kind of just sitting there now, that corner space, and use it for deliveries. And that way we won't, I think it will actually reduce street congestion. It will provide screening that's not there now, more plantings that are not there now, and the extra lane in the parking lot, I think, will be very helpful. One of the reasons that what they found is that with only one ticket taker, they've had a couple incidents, one where the ticket taker breaks, and then that causes problems, and then a car broke down or wouldn't restart. And so when you only got one lane, having a second lane, the odds of having both issues are pretty remote, but it certainly does become a problem. And see, these are just practical attempts to help the exact thing what we're looking for, and I think that's why staff is recommending approval, because it does meet each of the code requirements. I should note that, yes, it's unfortunate that they built part of this already, and there's no good excuse for it. I should note, however, that it is on existing footings. Okay, I mean, there's actually like an areaway underneath this. So those existing, there's actually basement under those footings. So it's not something like they went in, dug in footings, put it all in. They just built on top of it. So I read through briefly, because I just saw them out, the numerous neighborhood comments. And I should note, as I saw them and went through them, it looked like most of it was wanting to relitigate or readdress things that have already been approved, and readdress the TDMP, and readdress things that actually weren't approved, and put the conditions that would have been imposed if that had been approved at this time. And I think, as staff indicated in its report with respect to TDMP, we're looking at just the specific application here, which are just canopies and adding a lane. The applicant does have security every day from 10 to 10. And on busy days or on weekends, there are 2 of them. So I understand that they would like off-duty police, but the security guards can direct traffic really just as well as police officers for the most part. This is really a narrow application, and I think for all the reasons set forth in the staff report, we would urge approval.
All right. Commissioner Lukey-Peer, you have a question for the applicant.
Yeah, just in looking at the partially constructed, whatever it is, what is the purpose of that projecting, I don't know, it looks almost like a ledge supported by angled pieces that appears to be almost running into the Bobcat? I'm sorry, in photos in the packet.
In the packet.
Yeah, well, but you can see it in your picture. They're kind of projecting at 45-degree angles, kind of cantilevering out there a little bit.
Well, it provides cover to the entrance.
No. Below. There's like a shelf below the railing height extending toward the loading parking. What is it? And it appears to be at least 2, if not 3 feet deep. Do you see that kind of angles? The kind of 45-degree angles-ish, kind of coming off the side of each of the posts toward the parking?
Can we
See those?
point out the 45-degree angle?
Yeah, do you see them coming off of every post toward the parking?
Here, above the car.
Yeah, what are those?
This.
And there's appears to
That is
be
a temporary.
planks on top of them?
So the railings and the ledge is temporary. They got a stop work order. The intent is to put actually metal rails in there.
Yeah, but what's the thing projecting beyond the foot foundation wall? Like you can see there's things projecting into the parking area beyond the foundation wall, right there.
This thing?
Those angles and above them. See how it angles out, 45-degree angle? And there's, in that photo you can't tell, but in these photos you can tell there's at least 3 planks laying horizontally across all of them.
What will happen is there
Yeah.
will be a gate here.
A
This
what?
won't be, this isn't permanent. That will go. There will be a gate. The intent is to have a gate there for loading.
Okay, I'm not, the horizontals don't confuse me. It's the things projecting out from them. What is that?
That won't be that won't be there anymore.
What is it? And why was it built? I don't understand even. I mean, if it was on the other side, I'd say maybe it's a drink ledge for eating, but it's on the parking lot side. So I'm confused as to what it is that's being constructed. Yeah, but it's underneath the eave. It actually doesn't function as that either.
I think the carpenter was using it as a saw table.
Interesting. Okay. So, yeah, because it extends quite a few bays. I would say that's at least 16 feet of saw table.
All I can say is it won't be there.
Okay, so can maybe you answer why your applicant, who's not new to the world of commercial construction, is building things without permits and without a licensed professional architect to sign off on a commercial addition? I'm just curious, you're a licensed professional, and I would assume that if something's required by law, they would do it. Why? They're not new to this. What's the deal?
There will be a fine that will be paid and imposed, and so I guess what I would think is that we should do these separately. I mean, there'll be a fine for building out before getting the permit, but we should focus on what the requirements of the code are and whether they meet it.
Right,
we're making no good excuse.
Right. But here's my concern: is that I'm an architect. I'm being told this is a covered walkway. I'm being told it's not an expansion of a market. I mean, on one hand, a person's only as good as their word. I haven't seen architectural drawings for this structure per se. I haven't seen anything saying that the footings actually are accurate. And one of the things I don't know is this an expansion for an outdoor market? I don't know. Its depth is weird. There's not a location for egress that I would think directly goes to the public right away. There's staff notes, thank goodness, for additional walkways to be, adjacent to these. But without seeing something before it's partially constructed, it's hard for me to construe what this really is intended to be. And I don't know if the footings, the original ones, were below the ground level and they built, 3 feet up to have this deck. I didn't know whether they were originally there, in which case this 3 foot tall concrete thing was there and they wanted, I don't know what was there before versus what's there now and why it's being proposed the way it is. It seems reasonable with what I'm hearing, but how do I know that what I'm hearing is actually its intended use?
Well, certainly, I think it would make sense for the commission to make it one of the conditions that it absolutely not be used for an outdoor market. That is not their intent. Frankly, I think it would be too narrow to have any valid or usable space in that regard, and to do anything other than to provide a covered walkway from the elements. I mean, what we had before were metal stairs, and those are notoriously dangerous.
Well, depending on what you're doing on them, yeah.
Well, yeah, but people coming in and out of a market. And if it's snowy and rainy and you get sleety, those are dangerous.
So, I mean, I guess I would say some of the applications here seem entirely logical to me. It seems to me as though it's almost a win-win, if I can say. It's apparently good for the business owner, and it would probably alleviate some of the problems identified by the neighborhood. But it's also somewhat inconclusive because, I say, but how do I know? So I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant just because this isn't a case where somebody's, some poor guy built a deck on his house and didn't realize you have to pull permits. He's never done it before. I mean, this isn't their first trip to the rodeo. So I'm kind of a little bit like, what's going on and why do we have this happening? And how do I know that that's what it is? And that where they did or did not locate egress from their building is where it should be. So I'm excited that they actually have an architect that's doing something, but I'm also dismayed that there's not drawings for this actually done to show that it's actually going to be designed to meet. I don't know. I'm just a little hesitant on that regard. I think that is your applicant or your client fine with all the conditions under the site plan review?
He is all the conditions are acceptable. Yes,
Okay.
Commissioner.
So I mean, I guess I would say maybe this is like a opportunity for your client to show some good faith to the community by not doing things that I could say are adversarial and questionable.
That was the intent, and unfortunately, I mean, I'm not going to make any excuses because they're just
So, okay.
they don't help. But what's done is done, and I think we look forward. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, I think, to tear it down because I think this is a good thing, a sensible thing, and I think it will provide both alleviation of parking aspects. I think it'll be safer, and that's where we're intending to go.
So I'm going to be making a motion to add another condition for the removal of, I'm just going to call it the shelf.
Sure.
Because I don't know what it is, but it definitely projects into what I would assume to be a right of way for people walking, and it makes no sense. So I'll be adding that, and I hope that they follow up with having full construction documents for this structure, because this is no small addition. It's a big porch in the future for the city.
Understood.
Right. Commissioner Magrino.
Yeah, I wanted to make a similar comment / question about the same issue there. Just given the way that the building is laid out internally, it's not like a Cub Foods where you can sort of have a loading dock in the back and then have it only accessible by employees. It's going to be one of the entrances to the building. So I'm pretty confident that people are going to be congregating on the porch. And I think given the history of the site and the problems that we've had with enforcement and different, I hate to use a word like livability, but things like that. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine that there aren't going to be people there contributing to some of the issues that the neighbors have had. So is there anything, do you have any ideas for how you might want to mitigate that?
The intent of the applicant is to have no loitering signs on the porch area and to have security enforce people to move along and not hang out there.
Okay. Okay. Are there any further questions? Commissioner Sweezy.
Yeah, Mr. Speeder, are you able to answer the question about the duration that the applicant had the off-duty Minneapolis police officer?
I believe it was between 3 and 4 years.
3 and 4 years.
Yes.
And that was a full-time or?
During the weekends, part-time.
You're probably aware that most of the neighborhood feedback was that there was never an off-duty Minneapolis police officer. And I understand that there is the hired security, but a security guard can't do everything, of course, that an off-duty police officer can do besides directing traffic and address some of the other livability problems. And the thing that I'm struggling with is you have this thing going up without the permits and the requirements, and there doesn't seem to be any concession on the back end to these what appear to be documented really well in the neighborhood letters and in other areas, frankly, about the livability issues and the stuff going on here. And it seems really one-sided to come back and ask for yet more concessions while these well-documented things that the neighborhood wants are just falling by the wayside.
I guess when I viewed it and went out there and looked at it, to me it didn't seem like it was a grab it's not an extra space thing. They're not going to make more money off of this. It's really trying to address community concerns about traffic, and that's part of the traffic, from what I've seen in these malls, is ingress and egress. And so we're really trying to address the ingress by the extra ticket taker and lane for it. And also to alleviate another issue is loading zones. And now we have an off-street loading zone. So that's where traffic notoriously gets backed up.
But is there a barrier to getting an off-duty Minneapolis police officer that the neighbors and the community could see on a full-time basis? Is there some barrier to that?
Funding, it would always be a big barrier because neighborhood or off-duty police officers, you could probably have several security guards for that cost. I mean, that's just a function of reality. A full-time police officer would probably be cost prohibitive. And so part of the reason before is they wanted a substation to provide that police presence. But that was opposed and it didn't happen. And a lot of the TDMP things that went along with that, of course, then don't get implemented. But so there is a give and take. And I think a substation, if there's a lot of concern about police presence, would have really been a great way to address that. I mean, providing a substation, that's a pretty big gesture.
Well, certainly lots of buildings have off-duty, or lots of businesses have off-duty police that don't have also substations. I mean, it's not a requirement.
No, it's true, but it does provide a police presence without this continuing daily substantial increase in cost.
Thank you.
Right. Commissioner Kronzer.
Yes, thank you. So what type of assurance do we have that this loading area is only used for goods, unloading goods and services?
It still would provide ingress and egress to the building like it has in the past.
I'm speaking of vehicles.
Oh, vehicles.
Specifically.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure. Well, the security will have them towed. There'll be a towing, no parking, loading zone only. You will be towed. Go to Cedar Towing or wherever.
I think there'll be gates.
And then, yes.
There'll be RFID gates. There'll be arms that only security guards could open and close.
Okay.
So that's how he's going to allow people to get in and out for the delivery.
So the intent is to have armed access only, armed as in a gate arm.
Arms move both ways. It's beautiful.
Armed access only, so that the security would open it up for loading.
And where are these security guards be staffed during the day? Are they going to be standing out there? Are there times where loading will be allowed and times when loading won't be allowed, so they know when to look to open the gates?
No, I can answer to this. So we monitor the vendors closely, and we realize there are like a handful of them who usually are just in and out every day. Yeah. These are the ones that we're going to give out the security numbers to. So our hopes is within the 15-minute interval, they would call the security, advising of their arrival, and then he'll be waiting out there to open up the gates for them when they get there. Anything else in terms of smaller vehicles, our hopes are, again, there'll be a buzzer, so he can buzz, and that will call the security. That was one. And the second is they're welcome to use the bigger parking lot, which is a pay parking lot around on the north side of the building. So it is strictly for delivery, and we are.
So you need to communicate to your vendors that they need to call ahead of time so the trucks won't be sitting in the street waiting for a security guard to open the gate.
Correct. And the way we approached this was through the vendors. They're the one who actually said, well, if you guys designate this as a delivery, that'll be a great idea. This way we can, instead of us always having conflicts of them parking in the middle of the street and addressing it, okay, let's turn it into this. So that idea was like more of a brainstorming from both the vendors and the management to turn it into a, so it'll be easy to coordinate with them and have them hopefully use this as a delivery space.
Okay, I have another question. Why doesn't the stair from the front porch, call it the front porch, the porch, go to the sidewalk to the south?
I don't think that there would, from what I saw when I was out there, I don't think there'd be room.
Well, there's room. There's room. There's a wide porch. The stair doesn't have to be that big. I understand there was footings. Maybe there were footings. Maybe there weren't. We don't know. But you're now proposing to send people through this loading zone back to the stair. The exit from your mall, I think, is a legal exit, so you need to get people to the public right of way. It just seems like you're really bringing pedestrians and loading vehicles in the same spot we don't want to be.
So I think one of the issues we got was security, having a stair facing the actual sidewalk. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, as a security purposes. When we